Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to those of you who are watching online as well. As many of you know, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so I want to begin my comments by addressing that. Imagine, if you will, waking up every day with the constant fear that the person that you love the most might hurt you. For millions of people, men and women, this is not a nightmare. It is reality for them. I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases in my career, and I can tell you that domestic violence doesn't just leave bruises on the body, it leaves deep, lasting scars on the soul. And at worst, it can take a life or lives. Our prosecutors and victim advocates at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office see it every single day. And as we observe Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we recognize the strength of survivors, the impact of abuse, and our collective responsibility to end this cycle of violence. But this month is not just about raising awareness, but also about empowering those who have been affected by domestic violence and reminding them that they are not alone in their journey to healing and justice. Domestic violence is committed by and against people of every gender, race, and age. Just this morning in court, an individual by the name of Troy Aguilar Olmos was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation for assaulting his girlfriend. Back in March, he showed up at her house with a gun and threatened to shoot her if she did not come outside with him. She was afraid for her family, so she complied. He then strangled her, pointed a gun at her, and punched her repeatedly. Luckily, her sister's boyfriend was there, and he intervened and got the gun away. The victim reported that the incident in March was not the first instance of domestic violence in the relationship, and unfortunately, even his arrest did not stop his threats. Aguilar almost continued to contact the victim from jail, and the calls are chilling. If you'll turn your attention to the screens on the sides, I'm going to play a couple of calls for you now, or at least portions of calls. In the first clip, you'll hear him threaten the victim in Spanish if she talks to another guy.
Yo no quiero que andes hablando con un vato, porque si andas hablando con un vato y tú piensas que yo porque estoy en la cárcel no puedo hacer nada, mi reina, estás muy equivocada, tanto como estoy en la cárcel, tanto como tengo poder para mandar gente para allá, ¿ok? Por favor, mi reina, no me hagas, don't play stupid with me, don't play no stupid with me. Sabes que voy a salir de aquí cuando salga de aquí y me entero de una cosa, mi reina, ya sabes.
In the next clip, he is talking to his girlfriend about how her parents want her to get a job working in fast food, and he threatens to burn down the restaurant if he finds out anything happened between her and another guy.
Man, this tripping. They want you working in a fast food restaurant. They want me to get me mad if I find out some going on in there. I'm gonna burn the whole restaurant down, and man, they tweaking on me. They tripping, and I ain't in here for nothing.
When I said earlier that domestic violence is committed by all ages and against all ages, I meant it. Aguilar Olmos was 15 years old when he committed this assault. We charged him as an adult, which isn't a decision that we make lightly. In this case, it was a violent offense where a deadly weapon was used during the assault, and he pled guilty to 2 counts of aggravated assault. So parents, understand that this absolutely can happen to your kids. It can happen to teenagers. The victim in this case was a teenager. The offender was 15 years old. So please educate them about domestic violence because it happens to them. This was one of many cases handled by this office's family violence bureaus. Those bureaus prosecute domestic violence, including child physical abuse and vulnerable adult abuse. We continue to collaborate with organizations, law enforcement, and community leaders to strengthen the safety nets for those in need and to raise awareness about the resources available. If you're experiencing abuse, start making a plan now so that you, your kids, and your pets can get out safely. You don't have to do this alone. There is a community of support in Maricopa County here to help you, to protect you, and to ensure that your voice is heard. And we have put some of those resources up on the screen. Now, in addition to this being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we are also in the middle of Teen Driver Safety Week. Lately here in Maricopa County, we've seen more risky driving, especially with teens and young adults. Things like speeding, not stopping for police, aggressive driving, street racing, and even hit and runs are becoming more and more common. These behaviors aren't just about getting a ticket. These are crimes that put everyone's life that is on the road at risk. According to the CDC, car crashes are the leading cause of death for teens. Teens aged 16 to 19 are nearly 3 times more likely to be involved in a deadly crash than any other age group. And sadly, many of these crashes are preventable. So texting while driving, speeding, and not wearing a seatbelt are all choices. So parents, again, if you have a young driver, take this week as a reminder to talk to your kids about their choices. This isn't just about being around other kids, joyriding, or kids being kids. This is potentially deadly behavior. Take this, parents, as seriously as we take it, because lives are on the line. And speaking of safety on the road, there was another deadly road rage shooting this weekend in the Valley. This time, a 23-year-old man was killed in Avondale. We continue to see these types of needless tragedies. It's happening too frequently. The fact that it happens at all is too frequently. Drivers do something to tick off another driver. They cut somebody off. They get impatient. They get angry. And then the gun comes out. Just pointing a gun at someone else can be the crime of aggravated assault, which carries a penalty of 5 to 15 years potentially in adult court. The end result, regardless, is that lives are changed forever and families are destroyed. If you get into a situation where someone cuts you off or is driving aggressively, don't engage. Don't get out of your car. Pull over someplace that is very public and safely remove yourself from the situation, or drive off if you're stopped. You never know who has a gun and who's willing to use it. These few seconds of frustration are not worth it. There is nothing that is worth dying over. And with that, I'm ready to answer your questions.
Hi, County Attorney. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. I have a question about that road rage shooting over the weekend. Avondale police say that the person who killed the 23-year-old may be asserting a self-defense claim in that shooting. When you get a referral from a police department in a road rage shooting, how do you assess a self-defense claim in terms of whether you'll charge it or not?
Well, in Arizona, self-defense is something that once they raise it, we have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was not self-defense. And so in evaluating any case like that, we're looking at the potential for that defense being raised, which, as you're saying, it looks like that might happen here, and the ability of our prosecutors to rebut that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay. I have two probation-related questions, and I think it goes really in line with the case you presented us here today. You mentioned after his prison stint, he's sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation. Are you, as the county attorney, confident in the job that the Maricopa County Probation Office is doing and individual probation officers themselves are doing in monitoring people who are on probation to make sure they're complying with all of the guidelines set forth in their probation documents?
I have had some discussions with the probation department. There are some things that, and this goes back to my days as a sex crimes prosecutor, that I wish would change. For example, I know that risk level is assessed against sex offenders using general criminal assessments. A lot of sex offenders don't score highly on those, and so I wish that were more precise and more geared towards sex offenders. Those are some examples. As to speaking to every probation officer, I can't do that. I know they have a hard job to do. And obviously we have some confidence because we're doing a probation tail, and that's because, as you can see, this individual has issues, and we want that individual monitored by the probation department once he gets out of prison.
And if there is a warrant issued for someone who is on probation, there's revocation documents potentially filed. Are you finding that probation officers are willing to go out in the community and arrest people who have warrants, criminal or non, revocation?
Are you meaning they're willing to file that, or they're willing to actually lay hands on?
Go out themselves and pick them up?
I haven't heard anything to the contrary. I don't know if they're necessarily filing it every single time they can. I know they're evaluating it based on what a court may do. As you know, if somebody does have a petition to revoke filed on him or her, it is up to the court whether they reinstate to probation or whether they revoke them to prison or additional jail.
Okay. One more question. On the Thomas Brown case, case of 2 Arcadia High School teenagers who have been murdered, it may be too early, but I think the community is potentially wondering if this is a case you're assessing for a death penalty and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I review every single case committed by an adult, since death penalty is not available, certainly for minors. Any first-degree murder case committed by an adult in Maricopa County, so that this will be no exception. Typically, those decisions are made closer to the deadline than earlier on, and the reason for that is very practical. We want the most information we can get to make that assessment, and so we'll be going through the same process I go through with every other case in the Brown case as well.
Great, thank you.
But I haven't made the decision yet, okay.
Afternoon. To follow up on the special action that your office has filed related to the protest case involving ASU that happened in last year, I'm sure you've seen the defense's position where they're asking, why won't you and your top prosecutors just testify, and why is that so bad? What's your response to that?
Well, Dave, as you know, this is pending litigation, so I'm not going to really comment on that. What I will say is this. My office's position is far beyond that, the concerns that we're raising. We filed last week, I think Friday, a 43-page motion with attachments explaining our reasoning, and so I would urge people, if they are wondering why we are challenging this, to read that.
And then I guess just one follow-up on that. Not under your tenure as county attorney, but this office's history with protesters having, the county paid $6 million settlement for people charged in 2020. I guess it gets kind of the same question, but would that extra transparency be a bad thing? Of you or anyone else taking the stand and talking about why you're charging protesters with these charges?
Well, I think that will become obvious at trial. That situation that you refer to from the protests that happened back in 2020, we are a long ways from that. Number one, as you pointed out, there's a different leadership team now. Number two, I was actually one of the attorneys that raised concerns about those charges. Number three, I'm the person that fired the prosecutor who did that. Number four, our office referred her to the state bar. Number five, we changed policies to address that. So I don't think we're there anymore.
Okay.
Doing a follow-up on the lawsuit about the gun that killed the officer, the wife put in lawsuit.
Yes.
Do you feel there's should be an exemption, the gun they used to murder police officer responders?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder when this law was passed, I think it was passed back in 2013, I wonder if this specific scenario was considered. And for people viewing this, let me repeat that. We have the widow of a Phoenix police officer who was killed in the line of duty, who is suing so that the gun that was used to kill her husband is not resold per state statute. She wants it disposed of in another way. Like I said, I don't know if when the legislature passed this law back in 2013, if they contemplated this exact situation, but I'll tell you what, if Julie Erfley wants to reach out to my office, Julie, I will stand side by side with you to get the law changed, because I agree with you, this would be a travesty.
This one goes a couple of weeks back, a couple months, the police shooting, the road rage incident.
Which one?
The road rage incident.
Oh, the road rage incident,
Yeah,
yes.
the guy got out of the car, confront the other one, and he gets shot and killed.
Is this the one over at 7th Avenue in
No,
Missouri?
in Tempe.
Oh, Tempe,
Yeah,
okay.
a couple weeks ago,
Gotcha.
maybe a couple, 2 months ago.
And you know what? That should tell you what the problem is here, how much there is.
How
We're
many
talking about
cases are
different
there?
ones. Yeah.
We talked to some neighbors, and they say they accuse the suspect of being aggressive while driving incidents. The jury only came out and indicted the shooter for drugs. Do you, any circumstances in which you will prosecute without an indictment?
So let me fill the listeners in. So this was a situation that happened in Tempe where there were two cars. One was pulled over, kind of brake checked the other car. The driver of the front car got out and approached the driver in back, and the driver in back shot that person, and he died. The entire incident, or most of the incident, was videotaped by the dead man's young son from the back of the car. The grand jury heard a thorough presentation of all the facts, and they decided not to indict that shooter on those charges. They indicted, as you said, on drug charges. And you mentioned that there were people that had information about some past aggressive behavior on the part of the shooter. I can't talk to you about what was mentioned in the grand jury proceeding. I can tell you that we did a thorough presentation based on the information we had. But if there are people out there who feel like they have information that may be relevant to this case, just like in our campaign that we're doing to report, don't repost, I would urge them to report that information to the police. And if the police feels like this may provide the additional information that may change a grand jury's mind, then they can submit it to us. But in order to go forward with a felony prosecution in this office, you either have to have a probable cause finding by the grand jury, or you have to have a preliminary hearing where there's a probable cause finding by the judge. And you don't, we don't just go to one lightly. Serious cases, they go to the grand jury. The grand jury chose not to indict. Absent additional information, we're going to honor that decision.
Last question is about elections. The conflict between the board and the recorder's office over everything related to election. What's your take on that, and should county residents be concerned about their voting being counted?
I would point out that right now we're in an election. It's a mail-in only election. Previously, there was an election conducted, at least in part, in Maricopa County to elect Representative Grijalva, and they went off without a hitch, and this is with the current board and the current county recorder, so I think the county residents can have confidence in the election.
Hi, two questions. First, from the newsroom, they wanted to see any insight into the next death penalty, when that could be or who it could be.
I'm not sure who will be next. I know there are about 20 plus inmates on death row who have exhausted their appeals. Jerf was kind of an obvious choice because he had killed 4 people in such brutal fashion. But there are a number of people on death row that have killed more than one individual. The list of people whose appeals have run is kept by the AG, kept by the Department of Corrections, and so I would direct you to them to ask which one was next. I know that I am told that there is an intent to continue going forward with the death penalty. I don't know. I can't speak to the frequency.
Yeah, thank you. And then a second question, going back to the topic of domestic violence. I spoke to MAG recently, and they talked about how they're seeing an increase in seniors experiencing domestic violence, being a part of those situations. And I'm just curious if that's reflected in things you've seen in your office or your capacity.
I haven't seen age-specific stats, but we can certainly look into that if you want that information.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.